pertinent for Scott Adams is how to stay healthy until the day you die. And it looks like, hey, we're live. Hello, folks. I'm Brian Keith on Dr. Ovadia's team. Here we have Dr. Ovadia, and we want to talk about how to stay healthy until you die, which is particularly pertinent for those of you who have been following either national politics and hearing about Biden having cancer, the kind that kills you within a year, or Scott Adams having cancer, the kind that kills you within a year. And as we see these other people who are apparently not going to be with us shortly, this was actually, those news stories both broke after we scheduled this live stream. But the idea of how do you stay healthy, understanding that you will die, but the goal is to be healthy and then one day be dead, as opposed to be unhealthy for years or decades before you pass away and suffer terribly. So we're talking to Dr. Ovadia about this today because Dr. Ovadia's area of focus with heart surgery, but also metabolic health in general, he's seen a lot of people that have had a wide variety of outcomes, all the way from healthy, dead to suffering for decades and knowing it can't get any better. So, with that very cheerful introduction, and for the 50 people already here, Dr. Vadia, can you set the stage here? One of the things you love to say when you're on stage is your aha moment was when you realized that you were aimed not at healthy, dead, but you were aimed at long-term suffering before you died if you continued on your current health journey. For the now 68 people watching, can you share us, for anyone, for the two of you who have not heard this part of Dr. Vadi's story, can you recount that, please?
Yeah, sure thing, and certainly echo, this kind of timely discussion. It broadly fits into a theme that I was talking about this past weekend at a conference as well. We do need to acknowledge, right, that we can't cure death. We are all going to die. And what I see the goal of what, the work that we're doing here ultimately being is making that time as good as possible, and then making the good time as long as possible. There's a saying that I always love to repeat, and I'm not sure where it came from, to be honest, that I want to die young as late as possible. And that's really the mind frame that I bring to this. As you said, I was headed down a very different path. 10 years ago, when I was a morbidly obese, pre-diabetic heart surgeon, and I knew that I was kind of headed down that pathway that so many of my patients go down, where, they have the heart surgery and were able to extend their life and maybe, at least temporarily improve the quality of their life by relieving some symptoms with doing that surgery. But it oftentimes ends up with a long period of time where they are suffering, debilitated, in worsening health, not able to enjoy the things that they want to enjoy. And I think if you give most people the option of a shorter lifespan that is going to have a longer quality health span, so they're really going to be able to enjoy the life, for the majority of time they're alive, versus a longer time alive, but having that significantly reduced health span and spending the last 10, 20, 30 years of their life not able to do all the things that they enjoy. Most people are going to choose, I'll live shorter but better. And unfortunately, what we see in the population generally today is the opposite. Most people are spending the last couple of decades of their life in a poor health span. And when I see 30 and 40-year-olds that are ending up on my operating table or they're requiring multiple medications to take care of their various health ailments, we know that their health span maybe is already gone, right? But what we're trying to do is empower them to take that back, because when you can reverse things like diabetes and heart disease and insulin resistance, you can give back health span as well as lifespan.
Now we have Chris Cornell in our background here as the host of this. Chris, hop up on stage here. We have a lot of your viewers joining us as well. And Chris, you hit that moment when you were looking at your health span and concluding that maybe it was in the past and maybe it was you're going to be this sick until you die at some decades long point in the future. Can you share with us what that was like for you? What was the aha moment when you realized that if you didn't do something significantly different, that your healthy part of your life was behind you?
Well, I was visiting my mom at her condo, and I went into the bathroom and saw the scale on the floor, which I didn't even have a scale at that time. And I looked down at the number after I stepped on it, and it was 278 pounds. And it was a shocking revelation to me, and it kind of it woke me up, and I started to realize how poor my overall fitness and health was, and that I was not living the kind of life that Dr. Ovadia was just talking about. One where I was enjoying all of the aspects of every day, and I knew I had to take some sort of serious action to fix things.
So, what's that one biggest thing? We have 220 people watching right now live. What's the one biggest thing those 220 people should start doing? And what's the one biggest thing they should stop doing if they want to be healthy until the day they die?
Well, find a plan if we're talking about metabolic health, and for me, I was severely obese. A plan that's truly feasible, that can have a chance of working. And for me, that was a therapeutic carbohydrate reduction diet, so low carb diet with high amounts of healthy protein and healthy fats. Um, that was the first domino that I knocked over that got me on the track. It was a plan that actually works, and it was a plan that was something that I was able to sustainably maintain now for over 7 years.
I remember when I first heard about keto from my cousins, and it sounded insane. They were doing things like having burgers with cheese on them, which this was, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. It sounded like these people are obviously been taken in by some ridiculous internet fad, and this is just dumb. It's too simple to possibly extend your health span. Obviously so. Everyone knows that. Why is it, Dr. Avadia, that something that level of simple that Chris here is in front of us, still running marathons and breaking personal records on the bench press? How is it that something so simple could possibly help this guy change his health span destiny?
Yeah, that really is the big question that we all need to confront, because it does almost sound too good to be true, right? Just change what you eat and it can have these dramatic effects on your health. And and then when you dig into the how we talk about changing what you eat, right? Eating burgers, right, which we've all sort of been programmed to believe are not healthy, can actually make you healthy if you eat only burgers, for instance, which isn't the only way to do this, but it's one way to do it. It sounds almost unbelievable. And I always talk about, the concept is simple, right? Eat whole, real food. Many people may have heard me kind of tell a little quip about, when I was preparing to write my book, Stay Off My Operating Table. Um, I sort of, uh, didn't want to write the book because in my mind, the book was 3 words long: eat real food, right? It really just comes down to that simple of a concept, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to put into place by any means. And unfortunately, because of the environment we live in these days, and the food and the social sort of constructs around us, it becomes very difficult to implement that simple concept. But the power of that simple concept is simply amazing. Again, I was at the Meat Stock conference this weekend, and there were about 350 people there. And I would tell you that probably 300, at least, of the 350 had an amazing story to tell about, health challenges that they've been able to overcome just by changing the way that they eat, and by focusing on eating whole, real food, uh, primarily animal based diet. The outcomes can be simply astounding. And like we said, when we get into the health span aspect of all of this, we can have dramatic effects on that.
Even if someone believes everything you say, there's a bunch of folks we have to convince that what you're saying is true. There's first the 367 people on the call where, okay, let's say you all raise your hands. Everyone watching, you can raise your hand. Do you believe that the basics of what this heart surgeon guy is saying are true? Raise your hand if you believe that eating real food is a significant part. Chris believes it, and Chris is also not dead. Phil also believes it. Is also not dead. I believe it. I'm also not dead. So we have a lot of folks raising their hands. That's nice. But we have the people we live with, spouse, kids, roommates. They have an inertia into how we eat specifically, not just health in general, but how we eat, how we buy food. We have friends and family we don't live with, the people that we care about their opinions. They talk to us. They look at us funny at Christmas dinner when we're eating just meat, or Thanksgiving. And there's all these beautiful food out there. And our pile is a pile of turkey with a little bit of gravy, and a little tiny bit of potatoes just for fun. And then there is our medical staff, our doctors, whoever else that look at us funny when they look at our diet and they say like, "Well, you're obviously going to die," and look at your cholesterol numbers, you're going to die. So even if you know the path, let's say you know the complete path, you read Dr. Vedia's book, you have a lot of convincing to do, quite apart from the actual effort of changing your own behavior. And I see we have some comments in here. We have such valuable insights. No, we haven't even gotten, Orion, to the good part yet, which is how the heck do you convince people around you to go and either respect your decisions that you're making that are different? It's sort of like the whole, if you want to stop being alcoholic, you have to stop hanging out with alcoholics, because it's really, stopping being an alcoholic is hard. Stopping being an alcoholic at the bar on a Friday night with all your friends who are all drinking, that makes what is hard nearly impossible. And so how do we persuade people that, oh, I'm doing what's good for me? Maybe you should join me, but I'm doing what's good for me, and you all should lay off with offering me all these snacks or sweets or treats.
Yeah, great questions. It was a busy week last week, right? So before I went to speak at Meatstock, I was talking to the Ziglar community, the community of coaches, that focus on Zig Ziglar's philosophy, and this is run by his son Tom Ziglar. And what was interesting is, that's an audience that isn't necessarily bought into the things that we talk about, right? As opposed to this other conference that I was going to speak at, Meatstock, right? They were already bought in. But the Ziglar community is very focused on improving people's lives. And some of that is around, business and building businesses and entrepreneurship, but it's really a comprehensive life improvement program that they work on. And we were talking about how health fits into that, right? And everyone in that audience acknowledged, yeah, you want to be healthy, right? That you want to be able to enjoy sort of the fruits of your the fruits of your labor. But then the how to get healthy part of it, right, can become pretty controversial. And to hear from a heart surgeon that you should be eating a, meat heavy diet, and that you don't necessarily, you shouldn't be focused on a low fat diet or a low cholesterol diet, was somewhat, controversial and groundbreaking, right? Eye-opening. But there were certainly a few in that audience who had already, done that and were able to kind of speak to its benefits. And it was a very interesting distinction there.
So
One of my
there
favorite
were true
yeah.
believers at Meatstock. Obviously, the name of the group is Meatstock. True believers, but they were mostly in opposition to their doctors. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that was a big theme that would come up throughout the weekend. Is how do I find a doctor? My doctor is telling me this is going to kill me.
When it's the opposite. It's the
Yeah.
opposite. Here's for the 515 people watching. If you want a doctor who's trying to keep you alive instead of kill you, I can say that because I'm not a medically licensed person. Haha. ifixhearts.com/talk. That's where you can coordinate with our team to get on the phone with Dr. Ovadia for our first consultations. Are always an hour long. and you can talk to a doctor who's not trying to push statins on you because he's not paid by the pharma companies. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, but they have kept a lot of people from dying. So maybe you should listen up. So, because what you're saying, Dr. Reddy, is completely common. We were just down in Reno at Laurel Langemeyer's Big Table event, and I was working your booth there. And half or more of the people I talked to, they shared stories about my doctor says I should do this, but I don't want to. My doctor says I should do that. And again, and like for 2 days, folks, I was listening to people say, here's my numbers. My doctor says I should do this, but I don't want to. That, and then I gotta say, well, thankfully for you, the heart surgeon's right here. Let me go grab him or go stand in line to talk to this guy. And then you can have someone else with letters after their name saying, you don't have to do that. And now you can have the two wolves, the competing wolves on your shoulder saying, you have to have statins. You probably don't need statins, and they can fight it out. And then you don't have to feel so bad. You're like, wow, the doctors disagree with each other. But I'm curious at Meatstock, what did you do when people said, I know what I'm doing, I know it's right, but my doctor's fighting me on it? What was your advice to these people?
Yeah, my general advice is, maybe it's time to reevaluate your relationship with that doctor. Maybe it is time to find a new doctor. But at a basic level, what you have to figure out is whether your goals align with that doctor's goals.
Hmm.
And oftentimes, that is not the case, right? And this comes up in something like, a diabetic patient, right? And the doctor's goal is to keep their diabetes well managed, right? And that might look like let's say a hemoglobin A1C level of less than 7, which is generally
Well, look,
considered.
Chris is shaking his head. Chris, tell us, when you decided to change your life, was your doctor, when you first told your doctor, by the way, doc, I'm going to stop eating carbs other than like 50 grams a day, and I'm going to run a marathon and start lifting weights. Was your doctor supportive? Were they like, yeah, right on, man, let's do this?
Um, my doctor was actually not even that involved with, giving any sort of advice that could be construed as helpful or not. I was shaking my head actually with respect to managing type 2 diabetes because I have a 51-year-old brother who's managing his type 2 diabetes by going to dialysis 3 days a week and sitting and waiting on a transplant list. I'm very familiar with how a lot of people in this country manage their type 2 diabetes.
The
Yeah,
level of the level of
exactly.
suffering that is just average that we accept as normal is just awful.
And that's what I was kind of getting at with making sure that your doctor's goals are in alignment with yours, because if your goal is to reverse your diabetes and get off of medication, and they're not sharing that goal, right, you're going to have a hard time getting value from your relationship with that doctor. And ultimately, a doctor should be providing you value. They should be helping you to reach your health goals. And all too often, as Chris said, we see that that's not the case. And the fortunate thing is that we do live in an era where you're not just locked into the doctor that happens to be, geographically close to you. You're not locked into the doctor that happens to take your insurance or be preferred by your insurance company. You can go out and do some work and find a doctor that is going to be in alignment with your goals and your values and is going to help you to reach that goal of hopefully staying healthy until the day you die, to bring us back to today's theme.
If you don't have that kind of doctor in your life right now, folks, there is the website to go to book a time to talk with our team and see if Dr. Vadia can be your doctor in that role. Now we have 660 people, 61 people watching right now. We don't have a way to throw a poll up on the screen here, but I'd love you to comment on whether you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. Go ahead and drop a note in the comments there. Comment on the post. And yes or no, has your doctor ever told you that type 2 diabetes is reversible? Not manageable, but reversible. And Chris, if you would please go ahead and look at X, and both on Chris's X feed, on Phil's X feed, go ahead, just say yes or no. Have you ever had a doctor tell you that type 2 diabetes is reversible? And let's go see here what people tell us about, has that ever happened? Whenever we ask this question, We always get the same answer, but let's see if today's different. Maybe it'll be different. What are you seeing, Chris? What are people saying? How many yeses, how many nos?
Have not seen any responses as of yet.
Okay, well, I guess we have a few second lag from when we're recording to when the thing actually, even though it's a live thing. So we'll keep on looking at that. What we usually hear is a resounding no, that this is not a something, and doctors ever told me it's all about disease management, which makes a lot of sense from the monetary incentive that healthcare institutions have as opposed to your individual doctor that goes ahead and does stuff. For people, Dr. Vadia, that are less familiar with the telemedicine incentive structure, can you pull back the curtain a bit? Everyone knows that in your heart surgery business that you get paid because you do surgery, obviously. With telemedicine, how do you actually get paid, and how does that differ from how a doctor I might see at my local insurance controlled hospital? How is that different?
Yeah, so understand that, generally the doctor patient relationship these days, the insurance company is paying the doctor. You're paying the insurance company. The payment is usually just dependent on doing something, seeing you for an appointment, doing a surgery, whatever it might be, doing another procedure. Whereas, in the relationship that I now have with my patients in the telemedicine practice, they're paying me for helping them. And if they decide that I'm not helping them, they're going to stop paying me, quite frankly. And so, I think that really brings us back into alignment, right? Your doctor is primarily focused on keeping the insurance company happy so that the insurance company will keep paying them and will keep them on their preferred panel of physicians. And so, they're focused on following the insurance company's rules and judgments of, what keeps the insurance company happy. Um, that may or may not actually benefit your health in the end. Keep that in mind. Whereas when we get back to a direct relationship between the patients and the doctors, which is what I have in my telemedicine practice, and many doctors have kind of started to go back to this type of model. Where you'll see it called, for instance, direct primary care or concierge medicine. But basically, trying to get that insurance company out from between them and the patients. That is really, how we can now partner, me and the patient can partner to make sure that we're improving their health and helping them meet their health goals.
This leads right to a question from Sase here on YouTube. Sase says, Dr. Vedi, in regards to your advice, find a new doctor. Where is that doctor? They all think alike.
Yeah, so start looking at alternative sort of sources of finding doctors. My favorite is the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. And maybe we can put that link on the bottom, the smhp.org. And they have a practitioner directory of doctors that are focused on metabolic health or focused on this way of thinking. Another great tip that I always give people is just, if you know other people around you that are kind of trying to do this same thing and thinking about health in a similar way that you have, ask them, who's your doctor? Who are you working with? And like I said, don't lock yourself into that traditional thought of it's got to be a doctor that's local to me. A lot of this can effectively be done by telemedicine. And so, practice like ours, we see patients all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you're located. We can do this via telemedicine. And so, you might have to kind of think outside the box a little bit, I guess, when it comes to your health, and just look for metabolically healthy doctors that are focused on metabolic health. And again, the smhp.org is a great place to look for them, or come check us out, talk to my team. There's a good chance that we can help you as well.
So let's summarize here for the how to stay healthy until the day you die. What is that one biggest thing from each of your perspectives that someone needs to do or stop doing?
Let
Well,
Chris go first there.
well, for me, it's number one to develop a belief that it's possible to, if you surround yourself with the right people, you curate the right information, and you make it a lifelong process um, that you take seriously because you value the quality of your life. This is a one-shot deal you get here, as far as I know. So, it's something that's worth investing in, whether it's investing. In just the time and energy you put into it, um, getting a good doctor, a good coach who can lead you on the right path. So that's my take, and I've taken this very seriously for the last 7 years. Once I figured out that I still had some good time left, I've decided to really take it seriously, and it's spread um, to family members, and I've benefited from tremendous support from my family, but I think the example that I've set has also carried over to other family members, my children, my wife, um, actually siblings of mine. Um, this it hasn't all been great. As I mentioned, my brother with type 2 diabetes, but there's been a lot of good that's come of this.
Thank you, Chris. And for folks who don't follow Chris yet over on X, Biggest Comeback is the place to go ahead and follow Chris. Dr. Vadia, what's your one thing for people to do or stop doing to stay healthy until the day they die?
Yeah, so really the first step for me comes down to understanding why you're doing this. Because all of the other stuff is downstream, right? Choosing what to eat every day. You need to really understand why you want to remain healthy to give yourself that motivation, that power to make the good choice as opposed to the easy choice, which is typically not going to be as good. And it's not enough to just say, I want to be healthy. That's not really a why. You have to get to why you want to be healthy. What are those very important things? Things like seeing your children grow up, being able to play with your grandchildren, whatever it might be for you. Understand that why first and foremost. And that's going to then give you that support you need to make all of the other steps.
Beautiful. Okay, folks, thanks for stopping by with us today. There's that link again to go book a time with our team. And your homework is to go find someone you care about and talk with them about how long they want to be healthy and what they envision those last years and decades of their life looking like. Do they want to be healthy till the day they die? And if they do, what do these two guys just say? One said, figure out what your why is. And then, Chris, summarize your thing in one sentence again.
Well, I really concur a lot with Dr. Ovadia. I mean, you need, in order to enjoy life, to be with the people that are important to you. Um, you've got to take control of your health, and your health is what gives you that opportunity to do that.
So, do you want to be in control? And if you do, what is it worth to you to take back control of your health? Thanks for joining us today, folks. We'll see you on the next live stream.